Hey y'all, this is Lindsay. I'm the creative mind behind Doing the Most Design. In this video, we are going to continue working on the Kaleidoscope of Butterflies top. We are going to be learning how to measure and make the cups. This is going to be super important because this top is size inclusive and so is going to be. Hey y'all, this is Lindsay. I'm the creative mind behind Doing the Most Design. Thanks for coming back to my channel. Please friend me on Ravelry at LindsayDTMD. Today in this video, we're going to be talking about how to measure and make cups for my most recent crochet pattern, which is the Kaleidoscope of Butterflies top. This is super important for you to learn. Don't wing this one, no pun intended, because this is a size inclusive top. So we're going to be learning how to make these proportioned for you and tailored to your body in specific. Stick around. All right, let's talk about how you can measure for these cups. And I don't want to get in trouble on YouTube, so I have a surrogate. So if you recall, at this point, we have decreased the number of stitches in the bust band so that it will meet you directly under where you are attached to your own rib cage. So that is what we are doing here. That's going to be our starting point for measuring the cups. I have my nice little model here for making the cups. Let's say that the midpoint of this sticker is my starting point. As you can see here, I've already chained a couple of stitches, and when I stretch it out, it is longer than the navel of this orange. So I know for a fact that this is going to be deep enough to carry this orange. And I want to stress here that I am stretching it a little bit. I might actually go and take one chain off of this. And the reason for that is because once you actually get yourself into the cups and then you create the straps that go into the back, they cross in the back, you want to make sure that, especially if you have a lot of mass up here, then they're not going to sag further. They're not going to hammock, for example. So we want to make sure that if there's a little bit of stretch, you are crocheting for the stretch. And then that way, when you put it on, it's going to actually be tight. So that's my tip for you on how you can measure for the cups on this. Now let's get started on how we actually then crochet those cups. And then another thing that we want to think about as we're making these is the density of the fabric. So that's why we've gone down to 2 sizes smaller for a crochet hook for making these. And the next recommendation I'm going to make is to follow a little trick from our friends who do amigurumi, and we are going to do yarn unders instead of yarn overs. So let me show you what that looks like. At this stage, I have enough stitches plus the stretch. I have enough stitches on my chain. From the second chain away from my hook, I'm going to insert my hook here, and instead of doing a yarn over and pulling up, I'm doing a yarn under. So one more time, yarn comes from left to right over the hook, pulling that up, and then doing my single crochet like that. And every single one of these stitches I'm going to do just like that, except for times when I need to chain, except for times when I need to do another chain. This yarn under is going to feel a little strange at first, but eventually you're going to do so many of these single crochet stitches, the muscle memory is going to really kick in after a bit. I am going to do single crochets all the way until the end of this starting chain. You can see that I've tried to go back in my mind to I am doing single crochets all the way up to the top of this chain that I've done. And then here in the final chain, I'm going to do a single crochet. Here you can see I'm yarning over as is standard. I'm doing one chain, and then I'm going to go back into that exact same stitch and do one more yarn under, single crochet. And then for every single one of these stitches on the way down, I am going to do more single crochets. Now that I've gotten all the way to the bottom of my chain, this might be a good time for me to maybe put in a little place marker here and then go through and count to make sure that I have the same number of chains on each side of that chain one that's at the very top. I'm not going to do that right now because I'm just demonstrating how to do this. I'm not actually going to be making this as a garment, but that is something that I did whenever I made my original garment because it can get a little tricky, visually speaking. At this point, I take mental inventory, go, yes, I want to continue building out this cup. So I'm going to do a chain one and I'm turning my work over and I will continue to do yarn under chain crochets all the way down this leg. Okay, I have made my way to the very top stitch, which should be a chain one space. So I want to do, oops, I want to do a single crochet stitch into it like this, do a chain one, and then in the same space, do another single crochet. And from this point, I'm going to single crochet all the way down into every single stitch, including this one that's a little tight up here at the top. So as you can tell, we are going to be increasing stitches up in that chain one space, and we're always going to create a new chain one space at the top of this cup every single row. Okay, almost done here. All right, there we go. So at this point, again, you might want to put a stitch marker in here and count to make sure that you have the same number of stitches until you are really confident that you are increasing stitches up here at the top and that you are staying flush down here at the bottom so that you're not accidentally creeping up in one direction with the cup. Hey, sorry to interrupt what you're making right now. I just want to say how much I appreciate you watching this video. You can show your appreciation for me making this video by either tipping me on Ko-Fi, the link is in the description box below, or liking, sharing, comment, and subscribing to my channel. Every little bit helps, and I really do appreciate it, especially if you don't have the resources to financially support my channel. Thanks so much, and on with the rest of your project. And it's with that process that I ended up making both of these cups. Here are two additional things that we can talk about regarding these cups. So, as you can see, these are multicolored and not made out of a single monochromatic, like my little sample here. These are the same colors that appear in the main color, which is what I used down here. Now, for my circumference, when I was making this, the colors were basically self-striping. Um, there are a couple of rounds where the butterflies are multicolored like this. So I have here like a marigold, and then underneath is more of a goldfish gold. And here it's more of a marigold with a neon yellow on the top. But most of these rounds did come out self-striping. And then I got to a certain point where I decided I should probably just cut the colors apart from each other. So I can control when the color changes are happening, provided that I have enough yarn to complete the next two rounds. So I had made that decision already, and then I wanted to make sure that these cups were symmetrical in their coloring. They're not perfectly symmetrical, but they're pretty close. The reason why I say they're not perfectly symmetrical is because I know for a fact that I chose to do like a half row in a different color. And even right now, I don't really see it. So it's pretty good. Here's how I managed to make sure that these were as symmetrical as possible. Because I'd already taken these yarns and separated them into their separate colors, I had those in little wound up, hand wound balls. When I was ready to do one of those colors, I took the ball apart and I started one end on each cup. And then as I did two rows on one cup, I would then put that part down and I'd go to the second side and I would do two rows in that same color. And then that helped me keep track all the way through to make sure that I was staying consistent with the colorways. It's not fail proof, but it is pretty darn good. And at the very, very least, it'll help you at least stay consistent with the colorings without having to take a bunch of notes, for example. So, the second thing I want to talk about is how do you join the yarns when you change colors this rapidly? Now, my first version of this, the yarn, I'd already knotted it together. And so when I redid the cups, I decided to just keep the knots where they were. Some of them ended up falling outside of the cup, and then some of them I made so that they would fall on the inside of the cup, like this one right here. Um, Eventually, when I decided which side was going to go on the front, which side was going to go on the back, I tried to find the side that had like the least observable knots. But after I got to a certain point, I was able to go back and do the knots the way that I normally would, which is to make sure that the knots are all hidden along the bra band. So here's one way that you can achieve that. Here I have a white, and we're going to continue to work in the white, but I want to show you how we are going to join these two together, and I'm going to cut this white. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of a runway to land this airplane, so to speak. And then here on the project, I will figure out how far down this strand that I'm already using I need to go. So I crochet all the way to the end to the row, and then I take a mental note that right here is where this yarn would extend underneath the cup and would otherwise be hidden by the bust band. So I'm going to kind of hold my thumb right there and note that location. Then with my second yarn, I'm going to come in and I'm going to create a knot up over like this, underneath, and I want the tail of this second yarn as it enters this knot to go from left to right so that it is pointing in the direction of the project. My nails are a little too long. I struggled with this a bunch. There we go. Okay, so I'm making this knot right here. And then I'm going to scoot that knot. It does move along the strand. I'm going to scoot that to where my thumb was marking that location. So here I have the new yarn that I'm adding. Here is the tail of the old yarn that I'm trying to complete. I have right here, this is roughly the spot that I identified earlier and I had marked off with my thumb. So now what I want to do is make my knot in the old yarn around the new yarn, and I'm going to pull it kind of tight to where that marked stitch was. You see here, I'm really trying to hold the yarns in place so that they don't move around a whole lot. And if you didn't catch that, the tail for this knot is going from right to left towards the new ball of yarn. And then I'm going to pull that tight. I pull these two yarns away from each other, and now that is going to lock them in place. This is a type of knot that is impossible to undo, so you don't have to worry about this. It is a type of knot, or you could use also magic knot. I don't personally use magic knot. All right, so as you can see, I've clipped those ends, and now what I'm going to do, coming back to the project, I'm going to re-crochet, again using the yarn under technique, all the way to the bottom of this. And then right here, I'm going to do my chain one like I previously would do. And there, that knot is absolutely at the bottom of this cup. So I've done my chain one. I'm going to turn my work over. I will start a new round doing the yarn unders, and I will single crochet and build and build and build until the cup gives me enough coverage. So this is going to help get you cups that are tailor made for you. Again, we are working with a smaller hook to try to increase the stitch density, and we're doing the yarn under technique in order again to try to make sure that these stitches don't expand so much that you can see through them. So these are really dense and tight. Even as I'm pulling them apart, I can see air underneath them, but I can't see stuff underneath them. And that's what we are going for with this. So that will get you to the point where you can build them out as big as you want. And then at the very end, the last row that you will do this very simple chain border, which is going to be that you do a single crochet inside of a stitch, skip two, chain five, skip two, chain five, and that'll get you these cute little scallops. So as you're going along and you're making these chains, if your next single crochet into the final row here of your cup would fall into the chain one space at the top, then instead of doing that, just cut short by one stitch and place it here, and then do your chain five around this chain one space. If you would naturally fall on the stitch in front of it, great, go ahead and keep going like that. If you're going to fall about two stitches in front of it, then chain maybe two extra stitches around and skip down to two chains on the other side. So just really anything to keep this symmetrical. But what you don't want to do is to chain directly into that chain one space, or to do a single crochet into that chain one space, because we need this loop at the top to be available so that we can make our straps and make them directly from that space. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that chain border on this little guy to show you that as I was doing the border, here was the natural place for my crochet hook to go into to do the single crochet here. But the next space would have been here, and that would have been a little wonky. So what I decided to do is I chained two more. So this is chain seven right here. Then I went two stitches to the left, or one stitch to the left of where I normally would have put my crochet hook, which is right here. And then now it looks a little bit more symmetrical. Then when I did that, I naturally landed on the very, very last stitch. So that worked out pretty nice. That is more or less the effect that we're going for. Let's look how goofy this. That's actually, okay. Let me zoom out. Okay, you're seeing everything now. That's actually pretty good. That's a pretty good size cup for this little scale model garment. Now, notice that I didn't come to the midpoint. Check the instructions in the pattern, the written pattern itself, for what you should do if your cup starts to get too wide for this little section here. Okay, now we're going to jump into the video where I show you how to make the straps. Thanks for making it to the end of this video. If you have not done it yet, hit like and subscribe so you can be notified when I put out more content for you. I'd love for you to connect with me on Ravelry at LindsayDTMD. Check out my link tree for a collection of my projects. And if you're able to, leave a cash tip for me at my Ko-Fi page. All links are in the video description below. Don't forget to be kind to yourself as you learn, and thanks for spending your time with me. Bye!